Okay, as you can hear us laughing and watching us talk and all this stuff, this is Real Boxing Talk on the Ultimate Sports Network. If you were lucky enough to, if we recorded the last 3 minutes, you know exactly where this show is going to go. All right, we got a couple things coming up. We've got a lot of stuff to pack into this show. Let's first let's welcome everybody. John, Charles, how you doing today?
Good. How you doing there, Frank?
We're good. Good. Okay. Welcome, folks. If you haven't tuned in before, what the hell's wrong with you? Anyway, this is Real Boxing Talk, and we are going to talk about what's coming up this weekend and the weekends to follow and what's happening in the ring and the court cases and all kinds of fun stuff. And let's start with this. We have a unification bout, I should say, of the junior welterweights of Jose Ramirez and Josh Taylor coming up. Now, this is an interesting bout for a couple of reasons. One, we don't get unification bouts that often. And that's amazing to me that this has gone almost under the radar. I mean, these are the guys that came out of the Super 6, whatever the new configuration of that was, all that, and we don't talk about them, we being everybody. So let's start with this. Charles, what interests you about this fight other than the fact that it's a unification fight?
You know, this is where we get our historian. John usually comes in and breaks it down. So I appreciate being able to go first.
That's why I started with you, to put you on the spot.
Right. And then looking silly so he can clean it up. Appreciate you, John. But I think for me, it's probably the factor that it seems as if these guys have been on the collision course, right? Collision course, even from the point when they were amateurs. And then now, you know, they were supposed to meet before, and then that got postponed. It's almost like two guys that have been scrapping and they have great records, they're champions. And then it's like, well, damn, when do we get to sit at the top like the king, and king gets all of the riches because he sits at the top of the throne. It's like these guys are like, I'm a king, but my kingdom is way over here to the left. Nobody pays attention to it. So I think that's what's impressive to me. I think I'm also looking forward to them getting together because they really want this to prove to the world that they're good. I mean, you think about it, they both fought as in the 2012 Olympics, right? In the same division. Right. And then they end up, you know, the eventual winner was another legend in Lomachenko. So they were still like, it's like real quick, it's like these guys are their first team worthy, but they're always second team honored, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Well, John, we're looking at Ramirez, who knocked out Maurice Hooker, which, you know, again, I was here in Vegas during that fight, and everyone that came in around me were Hooker fans. They didn't think Ramirez had a shot. And then you got Taylor, who went through the series, whatever we're going to call it, and they still don't get any respect. Why is that?
Well, as you said off air, Frank, for some reason the junior welterweights aren't sexy enough or something. And see, the thing that's frustrating for a guy like me that writes so much about boxing is this is the kind of fight that the fight fans are constantly clamoring for. You know, this is a couple of undefeated junior welterweights, both champions, both have earned it. Josh Taylor may be a little bit more famous. Ramirez may be a little more grittier. You know, he comes from Fresno. He represents Fresno. He represents the union workers out there. He's a great guy. Taylor is a very confident young guy, also a nice guy. They should be what embodies what boxing is. You've got two guys that are saying, look, you're pretty good. I think I'm pretty good. Let's see who's better. That's what it's supposed to be, right? Instead, you get no press, really. You get no buzz. And I blame Bob Arum, our whipping boy here, for that, because I don't know what he's doing. You know, I don't know why. Maybe he knows that people are going to be like, and that's unfortunate because like I said, I think this fight deserves a lot more of what it should be getting, and it's not getting. You know, you got Ramirez, who you're right, Ramirez. Maurice Hooker fight. That was a dramatic stoppage over Maurice Hooker, a hell of a fight. And then his last fight, he didn't look very good. You know, he looked kind of sluggish against Postol. He won, and Taylor fought Postol and beat him easy when they fought. So if you do that comparison thing, but I kind of think, I wrote about it. I tend to think that we sometimes look at the last performance and think that's how the guy's going to be in his next fight, and that's not the case always. You know, that's how we figure, well, he didn't look good. We should maybe be thinking, no, he's going to look better this time because it's even more important. Ramirez has wanted this fight for a long time. Taylor has wanted this fight for a long time. This is a sexy fight. So I don't really understand some of the media ignoring it. I don't understand the promotion, but I can't wait. I've been wanting to see these guys go at it for a year. And Taylor, you know, he beat Prograis, who's, as we know, the Rougarou is as tough as nails. And Rougarou might have won that fight. That's what nobody talks about. I mean, he landed more punches. He was aggressive. You could make an argument that he actually won. He thinks he did, of course. He had Taylor in major trouble in the 12th round.
Trouble, yeah.
But Taylor beat Ivan Baranchek, who's tough dude, you know? And Ramirez got through some tough guys too, like Zabeda. So no, this is a sexy fight. I don't care what anybody says. I can't wait to watch it.
Well, to keep from beating the dead horse or the live horse or whatever, one of the things that we almost always say is we're talking about how do we get this publicized. The nice thing about it, being under-publicized, it is now being publicized, if that makes any sense. It is on ESPN. It will be shown in prime time, and people will get a chance to see it that aren't willing to go buy it on pay-per-view, which is cool. The flip side of that is it probably should be in that same vein as those fights that are pay-per-view fights. So it's interesting that it might work out better for everybody that the people promoting the fight haven't promoted it, if that makes any sense. So, Charles, I'm looking at when we get to these two guys, when we get to this kind of thing, even if they, whoever the winner is, whoever the loser is, we're looking at in that division or that weight class from lightweight to welterweight to junior or super welterweight or whatever. Are they major players, or is this just for a belt fight for the sake of belt fights?
No, I think they are. I mean, I agree with John. I think they are both major players. I mean, you don't just win those belts just because, they were laying on the ground or something.
Right.
When you look at that divisions, if you start from the standpoint of the jump from 135 to 140 to 147, right? We talk about 12 pounds, but it's a lot of people in that mix between 140, 147. I just think, unfortunately for them, though, that it may be the people that are, as John mentioned, that are promoting them. Like I was looking at something from the organization that is literally showing the fight. I was reading an article about the fight from March. And in March, now this fight is May 22nd. It's Saturday, right? So in March, when they mentioned the fight that they're promoting, they said these guys are fighting blah, blah, blah in Las Vegas at a location to be determined. 2 months out, you don't know where the hell they fighting at? Come on, dude, y'all promoting this? Or are you promoting it? That makes you wonder. But no, they're both legit. I think what's going to really have to come down to, though, is the winner of this fight is going to have to take another step, and they're going to have to reach out, and they're going to have to fight somebody that supposedly that the boxing experts or the media thinks is worthy for them to get some love. And I don't think it should be like that, because when you're undefeated and you are established as a champion, hell, that should be enough. It used to be back in the day. Tell me this. When you think about this, I give this real quick. As a heavyweight, back in the heavyweight division that we loved back in the day, who the hell knew where Jimmy Young came from? Unless you John, right? I'm just saying, who really knew? But he was a player because he earned his way.
Right.
And I'm saying the same thing about these guys. If they earn their way, they should be allowed to fight for all the money.
Well, you made the segue. Thank you. The concept of, do we have to, or does the fighter have to, or promoter or somebody have to call somebody out in order to get a fight anymore? John, you were talking off the air about Andre and Canelo. and how that worked. Share that with us real quick.
Well, I didn't see it. I just heard about it that Andre called out Canelo, and Canelo during a press conference got all salty, totally went off on him, told him he wasn't worthy, told him he's fight somebody, you know, you don't fight anybody, and he got angry, and he doesn't usually do that. So people were like, and then Andre came back the next day or something and called him a coward. So, I mean, he might get his fight just because he's making Canelo mad, but Canelo had a point. I mean, as much as we know Andre is talented, he hasn't fought anybody really in the top 10. How about earning a shot instead of thinking you're going to get a shot? That's what my point about him. He's 33 years old. I don't know what he's waiting for. You know, fight somebody. He fought a Smith brother and he beat him. Fight one of the guys in the top 5. Fight, you know, here it comes. Fight Charlo if you want to make a point. You know, do that, but don't start acting like you deserve a chance. It's back in the day. You brought up the 70s. Very interesting to me, and I don't remember it as well as I used to, but it seemed like guys would earn title shots. They wouldn't just expect it, you know, and you beat somebody else, and that would get you in position to get a shot at the title, at the champion. You wouldn't beat some guy that nobody's heard of and then say, okay, I'm next. Now, if he had beat Billy Joe Saunders, he's right there, because Billy Joe was in the top 10, but that fight fell through, and that wasn't Andre's fault. But, you know, Boo Boo, his nickname's Boo Boo, get Boo Boo in and something like that. But I don't think Canelo is scared of Boo Boo at all. I mean, especially with that nickname, right? How can you be scared of a guy called Boo Boo? But Andre is a talented fighter. I don't mean to dismiss him like that. He is talented. He would give Canelo some problems, no doubt about it, because he's a boxer, puncher more, and he'd move around, and so it could be a good fight. But I think what Andre is doing is what we said months ago we wanted Charlo to do, and he did it for a while. See, they all go off what we say, right? He's trying to make a big stink to get the fight, because that's how it's done nowadays. It's not done the other way. It's done when you get loud and you get annoying. And Clarissa Shields came out and said she agreed with Andre that Canelo was a coward and all this stuff. So, I mean, that created a buzz. So whatever works. So I still want him to fight Charlo first, and then if he wants to fight Andre, but he's supposed to bet Canelo real fast. He's supposed to fight Caliplant, but nothing is signed. So who knows? Maybe Canelo will surprise us and go, nah, I'm going to fight Andre because he made me mad. We'd love that. We'd go, oh, yay. So we'll see.
Well, I'm going to throw two things at you, Charles, that I think illustrate the point of what we like. We go back to the movie Cinderella Man with Russell Crowe playing James A. Braddock. And I remember the montage of, you know, he fights this guy, he fights Corey Griffin, he fights this guy, he fights this guy, fights this guy, and then that gets him the title shot against Max Perry, because that's where it was. I mean, he eliminated everybody to get to that shot. It wasn't like you call him out and whatever, and Max Perry like, I fight the next guy in line. Whoever it is, it's that guy, great. If I got to fight, you know, Brandy and Miss Hathaway, I'll fight. No, that's another thing. Anyway, but the idea being, if anyone understands where that came from, I feel sorry for you. The idea being, you fought the next guy, and the next guy had to be the guy that beat the guys before him. And there was no, I did this, I did it. There it is. You know, I want more money, you're ducking. It's like, I'm not ducking anybody. I'm the champ. There he is. Bring it on. And maybe that's because there was only one heavyweight or one division or one belt or whatever. Maybe that had a lot to do with it. Now we're looking at something, and I don't know if this is a cool segue or not, but this is something that Charles has been calling for. Guys that look like they should be in that. It's coming up, I think, in June. They're looking for that. I need to get back in the mix. What do? Erickson Lubin, Jason Rosario. That's a fight that's been made, or is in the, it should be going on. And we've been talking about how do we get these two guys back in the mix. They said, let's fight each other. So, Charles, is that going to be, I don't know, the way things are? Or is that just a fluke of happenstance? Because I never would have thought that fight would have been made, to tell you the truth.
Well, I mean, you would hope that's the way, but I mean, when we go back, you look at excuse me, you look at Andre and what he did. That came straight out of the Rocky movie, or even back in this point of you were going to the guy's press conference, you interrupted, you have a guy that's your guy, and he comes in there and he's louder than everybody, and call cussing everybody out, and then of course you get the guy's attention, who says, "This is my time. You don't fight anybody. Get the hell out of here." So I mean, that goes that way, but to your point about Rosario and Lubin, that's what you want to see because they're both on that collision course. They want to make the next step. Rosario, he shocked the world, had his opportunity. Then he took another step and he got pushed back 3 more steps. Kind of like playing Monopoly. You hit it and then you hit the wrong pace. You got to go back and then keep coming back to try to win. But Rosario's trying to get his feet back on solid ground. And he wants another shot at being one of the top guys in that division. And Lubin, let's be real, ever since the Charlo situation, he's been looking for another marquee opportunity. He would love to have Charlo again, so he says. But he's looking for another opportunity where he can prove his worth. He's made changes with trainers, doing a little bit of this and that, bounced around, looked pretty good. Now it's like, okay, this opportunity against Rosario would be great because Rosario has shown you when he's on, he can be the top-notch guy. So this is another step for Lubin. So they both are coming together. They're risking a lot because the loser may kind of, when we're going backwards again, the loser may go backwards and have to wait even longer. But the winner is like, you saw what I just did to him, okay? You did this, whoever. He's going to get a shot, probably definitely in the top 10, not the top 5. So, yeah, I think it's something we would love to see more of. But I'll say this very quickly. I think that the both of those, with these two guys, it's coming down to desperate measures, right? When you're desperate measures, you're running out of people. You can keep fighting guys that you can dominate. But as John mentioned, you're getting older. And even though Lubin's pretty young, you have to start making a mark where you go, hey, if I really want to get up there and get people to recognize me and see me, I got to take a chance.
John, it looked like you had something you want to add to that.
Well, I love that fight with Lubin and Rosario. That's on June 26th. So I'm really excited about that one. And it's funny. See, now those guys are doing what we were talking about. They're willing to fight each other to see who gets the move up. That's what we were just saying. That's the traditional thing in a sense. But it's gotten kind of murky in the last so many years. And then the champion, whoever that is, like a Canelo or whoever, they kind of can pick a little bit who they want to fight next, which muddies the waters. Also, I liked it better when somebody would say, okay, that's your mandatory challenger. That's who you got to fight. But a lot of times the mandatory challenger didn't even deserve to be in the top 10. So you go,
Exactly.
That's boxing though. Boxing really likes to shoot itself in the foot. That's one of their favorite activities. So I love this fight too. I love the fact that these guys are willing to put it on the line. I mean, a few weeks ago we were talking about, remember Frank, we were arguing about guys who would either put it on the line or wouldn't put it on the line. Well, I'm not going to put it on the line against him because what have I got to win? Well, obviously Lubin and Rosario know that if whoever wins that fight will likely get a title shot. And obviously that's what you want in boxing. You want a shot at the title. And Lubin, like Charles said, Charlo, I don't know. And both of them are probably like, I don't know if I really, I mean, what are you going to do though? He's the top guy. So you're going to have to fight him.
Right.
But that's where the most money is too. They are prize fighters. So you got to think that way too. And then I'm thinking like any athlete would think that, okay, he got me this time, but I'm going to make an adjustment and I'll get him the next time. So you have to think that way. You can't be brooding over the loss. You got to get over that. So no, that's a really good fight. And that's what boxing is supposed to be. These two guys are putting on the line to move to the next step.
Well, it's come down to, I think, is what we're seeing with the Andre and a couple other people, that it's almost the clubber lane. Hey, Balboa, you want to fight me? I mean, and grab the fight or humiliate the guy or whatever. Terrence Crawford trying to call out Errol Spence, whoever's trying to get to Canelo. Instead of, let's just go beat the guy that we got to beat and be the number one guy. Of course, we don't, as you said, John, we don't know who the number one guy is because there are four categories, and the mandatory may be the 15th best fighter in the division. So it's hard to get it organized that way. So I don't know what's going on, but here's something I'm noticing, at least for the fights coming up in the next few months or so. It appears to me that all of that BS, as we've been talking about, happens in the upper weights. And we'll throw the welterweights in with that because that's the glamour division at the moment. It probably has been for the last 30 years. But if you're looking at, say, lightweights, junior lightweight, blah, 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 they seem to want to go ahead and fight each other. Lomachenko had no problem going out and saying, bring it on, I'll fight anybody. And he got beat. Okay. We've got Devin Haney and Jorge Linares coming up in next week or week after next. Teofimo Lopez is going to go out and defend his belt. These guys don't seem to have a problem with that. Am I reading that wrong, Charles, or is it something that's more definitive than that?
No, I mean, you might be right about that, but I just think that it comes down to who's managing you and the way that it goes. Because when you get certain guys, like in the heavyweight situation, when one guy becomes king, then he can just say, or even like Canelo, he can just say, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, which, as John said, it kind of murkies, makes the water murky as far as them moving around and other people getting real shots. I'll say this, though, too, and you mentioned it, like you said, with all these different organizations, you got all guys that may be ranked higher and they don't deserve to be up there and all that other stuff. But let's keep this 100. And then maybe I might be reaching and I might be fishing. But I'm going to say this just by watching different things. The boxers, the champions, and the other guys, especially the champions, they know who the dude is. Okay? Let's not get that misconstrued. Terrence Crawford knows about where he needs to go to get with Spence Jr. He knows Porter is legitimate. He knows Porter is a straight line, beeline to say, now what? I think the guys that really are in tune, the real champions, know. It's just whether or not your management wants you to go a certain route because you risk losing money, you risk opportunities. And I think a perfect example of that is Triple G. Triple G does not want to risk anything. So it's like, I know it's taking a long time, but we'll keep waiting on Canelo. And now it appears he might get that shot again. And that might be his last big payday if he loses. So I think there's a lot of intangibles involved in these decisions.
Well, John, something we've talked about ad nauseum about the separation between boxing and prize fight. And I know that it's two different things, and I know it doesn't seem to be congruent, but how do we get those things to go back together?
You're talking about matchmaking, right? And giving the fans.
Basically, yeah.
You get a good match occasionally, like we're getting this weekend with Ramirez and Taylor, but a lot of times I think the promoters if they have a fighter, say like Eddie Hearn, see. Now, I have always thought that, and people can disagree with me, that's fine. I've always thought that Eddie Hearn was very protective of Anthony Joshua. I thought he kind of kept him in fights that he thought, okay, I like this, he's going to win. He had to put him in against Klitschko, though, to get to that point, and he risked it knowing that there's a flaw in Joshua's style. We all knew about it. Dillian White almost beat him. But if he was going to manage his career unofficially, in a sense, as his promoter, he was going to put him in there, but then put him in with two fighters that weren't really that much of a threat. So it'd be like boom, 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 instead of putting him in with fighters all the time that definitely could beat him. Now, there's nothing really necessarily wrong with that. I mean, if you go back in history, if you look at Joe Louis, he was fighting guys that a lot of times had no chance to beat him, and that was okay. And then he would fight somebody who did have a chance to beat him. But there was always, to me at least, there was always this sense, because Joshua was never even that close to Joe Louis's level, that Eddie Hearn was concerned that this apple cart that he's got is going to get toppled over. And then it happened with Andy Ruiz. So I think that's what happens, in my view, is that the promoters protect their fighters too much. And then with here's Bob Arum again. Sorry, Bob. Grouchy old guy. I still don't understand what's happened with him and Terrence Crawford. I think Terrence Crawford's contract ends, I think, this year, if I remember. And if I was Terrence Crawford, man, I would be out of that so fast it would make his head spin. Because I still think that in some ways, Arum has mismanaged his career. And those insults he threw at him about, well, I've lost all this money on him and all. I mean, that wasn't even necessary. What was the point of that? Why did he say? I still don't understand why you would say that about a guy who.
About your own guy. Right.
Yeah, even if he had lost you money, which I don't believe. You don't say it publicly. I just don't. I'm to this day, I just don't get it. I thought he talked about an old curmudgeon. My God. So that alone would have made me, as Crawford, go, fine, see ya, I'm done. You think you're so good. Who do the people come to see? The promoter or me?
The fighter, right?
So I would be done really fast. So I don't know. I think it's a combination of both, Frank. I do. I think sometimes the promoters are too involved in their fighters, and then sometimes they're not involved enough. Now, a lot of people have said that if Spence, and back to them for a second, and Crawford really wanted to fight each other, and Charles has brought this up before, how Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao said, all right, come and meet me in this hotel. We're going to hammer this out. Mm-hmm. If they really, really wanted to fight, they would do that. They'd say, look, I'm tired of you're saying this. I'm tired. The fans want us to fight. Let's work it out. Leave those bozos outside. We'll figure it out ourselves. Now, neither of them are as clever as Floyd Mayweather, that he just bypassed everybody and just did it, which was actually great. I loved it. But they ought to at least perhaps try it. And notice, last thing, you notice that nobody's even talking about Crawford and Spence anymore?
Right.
I mean, has that parade passed by? Are they just waving it goodbye? Apparently, it seems so to me.
Well, Charles, John threw a good phrase in there, managing the career. And how does that, what does that definition mean to you? Because I have an idea where you might go, but when you manage a career, now, again, if you just came out of the Golden Gloves and you just turned pro, we're talking 20, 30, 40 years ago. And, here's a guy you can beat. Here's a guy you can beat, get your feet wet to being a pro. You're 3-0 and this guy is 13-26, and you keep moving up. That to me is what managing a career is. Is it different now?
I don't think so. I think that the attitude is maybe a little different, where they may not take the chances that certain people would back in the day. I mean, you look at when Sugar Ray Leonard fighting Duran, right? As much as you knew, Sugar Ray had all of the Olympic background and everything like that too, but Duran was that legend, and that's really risky. We look at Canelo Alvarez when he fought Floyd Mayweather. I mean, it's like he kind of knew that he wasn't going to win, but hell, let's try it for the experience. And since that experience, his career has never been the same. He learned so much from a business standpoint, and in the ring,
right,
he's a totally different guy. But I think that's the premise of it. But I think you mentioned about managing, I think it really comes down to this: knowing the true skill set of your fighter, really understanding what stages that they are, how good they are, and then saying to yourself as a so-called manager, okay, why rush into something if we know he's not ready, and continue to rush into it? I think like Canelo, right? He fought Mayweather. You go in there, see what happens. Then you give them time to grow as fighters. That's what boxing's supposed to be about. You take a chance, you don't win it, you grow from it, you learn from it, you keep growing. Then if you keep going to the next level and you're one of the best, we roll with it. But if you're not, then we step back and we go, okay, well, we're going to slow this down a little bit because he's not progressing the way we thought he would. You're still winning fights. You're still fighting meaningful opponents. You're just not going for the brass ring all the time, because we know how that goes. You keep fighting champion after champion, and you keep losing, and they call you a has-been because you've been basically wasting the opportunities that you had to fight for the title. So you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. So why not truly understand the talent level and skill set of your boxer, and then make decisions from there? That's what managing a career is supposed to be.
Well, you mentioned Ray Leonard, and I've just looked something up. Now, I would say, just from my own thought process of my remembrances, that the first big fight that Ray Leonard had was against Wilfred Benitez. Does that sound right?
Well, see, I don't know about that, because I think, and
Let
me just say this. I would say yes, but to say that, I'll say this. I think that Ray Leonard's people thought and knew he could be Benitez.
Right. But here's my point. Okay, so he also fought Dickie Eklund, not a slouch, and Floyd Mayweather before he got to Benitez. But by the time he got to Benitez, this is what I'm talking about, managing your career. He wasn't 12-0. He wasn't 13-1. He was 25-0 at that point. So let's groom him to get to the point. And now when it's time to fight the guy that's the king of the division, we have enough experience under our belt to do it. That, I think, is the good way of doing it.
Right.
I see, but then at that point, the floodgates open. Benitez, Duran, blah, 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 blah. There were no more really soft touches until he retired, came back. What I'm seeing now is the king of the division wouldn't fight Ray Leonard. If Benitez was Errol Spence, he's not going to fight Ray Leonard until Ray Leonard fights somebody to prove that he deserves to be in that spot. Now, 25-0 might do that, but you understand where I'm headed with that.
I do.
The difference now is, okay, all right. So why is it different, John? Why don't we see that? First, we don't have guys building the resume when they're younger fighters or newer fighters, and then the champ says, "Hey, I've got nothing to lose. I'll fight the guy."
Well, you got to remember, Sugar Ray Leonard too was immensely popular and a gold medalist.
Right.
So that really helped, and that helped, even though he didn't get what he deserved, what he should have got as far as recognition about winning the gold medal. That definitely helped Andre Ward move up faster than a lot of guys. As you guys were talking, though, I was thinking that when you're talking about careers, back then, the guys would usually get so many fights under their belt before they would take the big one. But then you had an anomaly, in a sense, when you had Davey Moore only had like 9 or 10 fights, and he got his shot, and Leon Spinks got his shot against Muhammad Ali, right? And we were like, what, 7 fights, 8? So I think I agree. If I was a boxing manager, I would groom my fighter. But then you have the flip side. Just take a guy like the guy that we all like so much, Shakur Stevenson. He's got so much talent that I would feel confident putting him in there with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean Lomachenko, anybody. Because I think he's that good. And I think his team thinks he's that good. And I remember Andre Ward, who managed him for a while, said, the kid is in such a hurry, we have to say, just
slow down
a little bit, slow down. There's no rush. He's 22 years old, right? So I think you have to balance it, and his career, Shakur Stevenson's, to me, even though he's had only 16 fights, is a good example of how you deal with somebody who's got that much talent and keep him interested. Because a guy like him, he's going to get bored fighting these guys that he could beat with his eyes closed. So you got to keep him interested and then give him challenges. Mm-hmm. So it is kind of a juggling act. But in boxing is all about risk too, right? You guys know this, and you got to think about going back again. Think about when Cassius Clay fought Sonny Liston. Basically, nobody thought he was going to beat Sonny Liston. Nobody. He was a 10-1 underdog and then a 7-1 right when the bell rang. It's like, and Sonny Liston, I'll never forget doing the 2 rounds.
Right, yeah. Right.
That scared me when I saw it. I remember when I saw it on the news and I went, oh, you know, he's
If he
very
keeps
menacing
flapping his
sitting there.
gums, right.
But
If
the
he keeps
point
flapping his
is-
gums, I'm going to take him out earlier than that.
Right. And the point is that his team, Cassius Clay's team, Muhammad Ali, they felt it was worth the risk. Now, he got brutalized in 1 or 2 rounds, but they rewarded. They knew how good their man was. So it's almost like hanging out in Las Vegas a lot. You know, you got to gamble a little bit. Little risk, big reward. Bigger risk, bigger reward. So it's like that. But answering really fast why it's different, I think, like I said, I think the promoters, even though, see, my brain flips around, even though Jimmy Jacobs was very involved in Joe Louis's career with fights and everything. But now it seems like Eddie Hearn, Bob Arum, the main guys, even Frank Warren in England a little bit, are so involved with their fighters that sometimes it's a detriment to their careers. Instead of helping them, they end up hurting them. And that's what, and then that hurts the sport because they're messing around with things too much. And that's a problem.
Well, Charles, now we let's take it the other way, because you can massage your career to avoid a pitfall of a younger guy. But if we're looking at, again, for the last 40, 50 years or so, when you're the champion, and let's do the I love the geez, I'm gonna lose track of what I was saying. The Gentleman Jim Corbett story.
Mhm.
And you look at John L. Sullivan himself. He would, I can lick any man in the room. That's the concept. I'm the champion. You bring it. I'm going to take you out. Mm-hmm. When did it change to where the champion? Are we going to see Gary Russell more than once in the next 4 years?
No.
When did it become the champion saying, and maybe it's money, I don't know, but when did the champion say, I've reached the top, you got to kiss the ring, you got to lick my boot, and then maybe I'll deign to step down off the mountaintop and fight you?
Well, I think it changed because you saw guys coming after Ali. You saw guys coming even to the point of, and you can say, you can blame the pariah, like they put it out there, TBE. You can blame the pariah Mayweather, because Mayweather came out and he had a very unconventional style. He wasn't really knocking people out. He wasn't the same guy he was when he was younger, but he kept winning. And other people saw the way he was doing it and they were coming for him, but he was making the money. And unfortunately, I think that his winning had other people, other champions, other boxers thinking, damn, that's a pretty good record. You can run like, if I'm champion, I can do that too. But perhaps they were not as good as Floyd, right? So it's hard to do that. No, it's not hard to do that, but it's really sad to do that when you're not as good, because you may not be as proven as he is. I mean, and I think that's what happened. They start biting on it. And I'm thinking, if I'm Terrence Crawford, I'm going to look at that same thing Canelo did. I'm going to go independent now. And I'm going to show you, because I'm calling my own shots. But I think, getting back to your point, I'm going to call it the Mayweather era. I saw him fight 10 times in person. 10 times. And everybody said they had him, even from Madonna. Oh, he really beat him up. He lost that fight. Okay, but you're holding it hidden. Is that boxing? Same way my first big fight against De La Hoya. Holding it hidden. You won the fight. But the way he won and kept winning, it just showed that I'm the guy. And other people said, well, hell, if he can do it, I'm a champion. I can do the same thing. But what they missed is, no matter what you say about Floyd Mayweather, in the ring, he was always impressive. And the one thing he did, no matter who he fought, he made so-called great opponents look ordinary. And that's the key. When you can do that, that's what makes you great. All these other fighters, not so much. And I think that's where it changed. Everybody saw him doing it on promotional companies, getting paid 3 different ways, being in the ring for one time, right? And everybody got caught up in the hype. And that's how it changed. That's just me. Every time you turn around now, it's like, brought to you by Golden Boy and Josh Taylor Promotions. Really?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what everybody has their own promotion company. Javante Davis Promotions. Where did that start? So I think that's where it changed.
Okay, and I agree with that, but I guess maybe I didn't ask the question the right way. He fought people. We didn't have this. I didn't. You did. If you were the next in line, he fought you. Let's take a look at something here real quick. Let's go back to. Oh, geez. We'll go back to Gotti. We could probably go back further than that. But Gotti gets us to 2005. The next fight: Sharma Mitchell, Zab Judah, Baldomir, De La Hoya, Hatton, Marquez, Mosley, Ortiz, Cotto, Guerrero, Alvarez, Madonna again, Pacquiao, Berto. It's not like when you promoted the fight, you had to promote Floyd Mayweather and some chump.
Right. Can I throw something in real quick, John?
Please.
Let me just say this. You're absolutely right. You can see a blueprint of something. Doesn't mean people follow it to the T. People change it what works best for them. It's almost reading something that you're trying to prove your point. They choose out of the stuff that they like, and then they go that way. Floyd was a true exception, but I still think it started that way because people knew they could try to do it that way and get away with it. But that does not mean that they followed it to the T, which they adjusted by fighting maybe lesser opponents, which that's not the way that he did it, but that's the way
right.
He did it.
So if you're going to follow the blueprint, why wouldn't you follow it the right way? If you're the champ and you know you in your mind believe you're the fighter, John, why aren't these guys? And again, we're talking in the 4-belt division era as well, and if I look at these, almost all of these fights were in the first week of May, a couple of them in September. Okay, but where is it? Where is the next guy? Where does Spence say? Now, granted, we've got the reconstructive surgery and the action and all that, but where does Spence say, all right, I'm calling out all the welterweights, bring it on? Where's Canelo say, I'm calling out all the middleweights, bring it on? This is what it's going to be. This is my day, or this is my week, or whatever, and I'm going to fight once a year, figure it out, and I'm just going to pick you off one by one.
Well, it's just the way it is now. I mean, that was good that you read Floyd Mayweather fought, and I'm sure you guys know that people are always complaining to this day that he didn't fight anybody.
Right.
You can't please everybody. I mean, I think
right.
If anybody has emulated Floyd closely, it's been Canelo.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the number one guy in boxing, so it's worked. He's in charge. He knows what he's doing. He picks who he's going to fight, or at least he gives his opinion. And then Eddie Hearn has been handling him and doing a good job, I think. Mm-hmm. So it's just that what you're talking about, Frank, it was almost like an unspoken rule back in the day. Here we go again with three grumpy men. But, you knew that the number one guy was eventually going to get a shot at the champion because that's how it was done. I mean, you might not like it always because it wasn't fast enough for you. Take not too long ago, take Tommy Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard, right? Nowadays, those two would have been BSing for 5 years before they
right.
Then the clamor was so huge, and they were like, fine. There was no nah. They were like, yep, let's do this. I mean, it's mind-boggling in the sense that I think people have lost the understanding of what made boxing so popular, and that was what it was, the most classic old-time thinking where it's mano a mano, best and best, let's see who's the best. Mm-hmm. Now it's gotten so convoluted over the years where, well, I'm going to fight, no, I'm not going to fight him. Well, he's the top guy. Like, again, we keep talking about this, Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford. The fact that they have not fought each other is an atrocity to a boxing fan. It is. There's really no excuse as far as I'm concerned. They should have fought. They should have demanded, even though they said they did. Did they? So, and I don't understand that either. I don't understand why they didn't demand it, other than, well, it's too risky, like we've been saying for a few weeks. I'm going to keep making these easier paydays. But you know what, Frank, real fast, maybe it's just that the thinking is so different nowadays that guys don't really think about their legacies as they think about money and staying undefeated.
Okay,
so,
well,
you know,
that brings into mind the fight last weekend. Luis Neri and Brandon Figueroa.
Good fight.
Now, Figueroa wins the fight by stoppage, but I don't think that he looked great other than that one chunk of time when it's like, I mean, that punch was in the right place at the right time. Caught him under the rib cage and just boom, there goes Neri and he can't get up. But I'm not so certain that Neri wasn't winning the fight, or at least he wasn't in the fight.
Figueroa
so
losing.
There is that. Yeah. So there is that time of, I accepted a fight against a worthy challenger, and if I don't hit that one punch, maybe I'll lose the fight. So, Charles, I guess the question in all of this is, again, we're looking back, we always look back in time to look forward. But as we mentioned with the Deontay Wilder argument, debate, spirited discussion, whatever you want to call it, we had, that is it worth fighting the guy and lose if you're the belt holder? I think it is, because I was like, maybe I don't need to fight someone who beat me, or I might have a problem with. I just want to retain the belt.
I think, it depends on who you are as a person and what you represent, and then your management team. Because at the end of the day, it's like, okay, I think a lot of these guys are watching. We mentioned talking about Floyd all the time, but they're watching the way that he did it with Pacquiao. He puts out that perfect example. I probably would have fought Pacquiao for less than $10 million first, and now I made $300 million. So it's like I waited 5 years because I saw it. And unfortunately, it appears that they don't have people that really know what the hell is going on, what makes better sense for them. That mano stuff is out the door, man. Because it's got to make dollars, and it has to make sense. And I say that all the time. When you're at the top, you can fight anybody that you want to. The one thing I will say about Canelo, even though they want to accuse him of ducking and saying all kinds of stuff, the one thing he has done, and Eddie Hearn has been marvelous with this and the promotions, is he's taken, even when he's fought guys that maybe they've been undefeated, may not have been the marquee guys we want to see, he's put him in positions where people are just salivating to see him, and they will come out because they haven't seen him live. Miami, Dallas. He's putting in a position where people go, I love this dude because I can feel him, I can touch him, and they love that. So they will be okay with the rest of it. But I think it just depends on the individual. And unfortunately, now I think it's coming down to, for a lot of guys, instead of proving I'm the top guy, I'm mano a mano, I'm the man that stands on his own, on his own principles. It's about the cash, man. How many Twitter followers, how many Facebook, how many Instagram people that love me, and how many times the commercials I can do and how much extra dollars I can get, than it is about, I'm going to prove you I'm the greatest champion of all time in this division. That's a Shakur Stevenson attitude, but everybody's not like that.
Right. Well, and that brings to mind, John, I love lists. I love making lists and polls and all that stuff. Just off the top of your head, don't overthink it, but use your own criteria for this. Best promoter for the last 30, 40 years. Doing things the way that you think they should be done.
Well, for a while, it was between Bob Arum and Don King. But I always thought, before he got to be so grumpy, it was Arum was the king of the promoters. He was, he started off as a lawyer for Muhammad Ali, and then he worked his way up to this promotion thing where he created Top Rank, and they've had a lot of fighters under their banner. The Oscar, De La Hoya, and Floyd, Mayweather, and he was behind the scenes with a number of Ali's fights, and with Hearns and Leonard, he was there too. So I would put him there, even though I don't agree with what he says sometimes, and I especially now. But in my lifetime, he's been the top guy. Now Don King put Ali and Foreman together. I'll give him that. But this is just my view. I personally didn't like him because so many fighters were constantly suing him. You know, when he had Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., it can't be all a lie when you've got a number of fighters suing you for money that wasn't paid.
Right.
I mean, if we had Tim Witherspoon on this show, he would make your guys' eyebrows go up with some of the Don King stories that he would tell you, where King would say, okay, I'm going to give you this much money. And then you'd say, okay, well, where is it? And he'd say, well, we got this. It's like harder they fall. Remember that last scene? Well, where's the kid's money?
Right. Yeah.
Well, we got this, we got that. He pulls out the books and then he gets done. He's got $39.18.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of like that with that. So I had a chance to meet Don King, and just because of my own code, I wouldn't, because I think he screwed fighters. I do. So, but he was a very good promoter. And actually funny. I watched him during a press conference talking, and he's got the best vocabulary of anybody I've ever heard in my life. And he's very amusing, but I can't forget what he's done to so many fighters. I mean, Tyson, of course, also. So I have to say that it's Arum, but nowadays I think Eddie Hearn is the best promoter, just because to me, now not everyone agrees. Every time he's in the ring, people boo him like crazy, but I think he really cares about his fighters. I do. I'll never forget when Carl Froch knocked out bout in England. Hearn he was in the ring too fast. The fight hadn't even been called yet, and he was already hugging Carl Froch from behind. I mean, he likes his fighters. He likes Katie Taylor. He likes all the fighters and I think that's good. So he's controversial, sure, because of his job, but I actually think now he's the modern promoter. You know, he's shrewd, and he learned under his father. You know, his father was Barry Hearn, big time promoter in England. So talking about learning on the job, starting when you're about 5. So, but yeah, Arum is the king as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, I usually don't do this, but Charles, same question.
Yeah, I mean, I probably would go with Arum because he's lasted the longest, and he's had some great people under his tutelage, if you will. I do like Hearn modern day now because he understands how to work with guys. I mean, I think Oscar De La Hoya had the perfect opportunity to be Golden Boy. Should be at the top of the ladder, because you had everything in place. You saw how it was. And I think he kind of felt like my name's on it. He got kind of a little full of himself. And the key players, one of my favorite people of all time, Richard Schaefer, left, other cats left. And then he found himself in a conundrum where you had even the so-called best guy now says, you don't know what the hell is going on. I don't like this situation. I need a break. I'm breaking from you. I'm going to do my own thing. That shows you how much power I think Golden Boy had at the time. And he had a decent relationship with Bob Arum. So any knew how to work with the PBC fighters, when needed from a promotional standpoint. He had had everything at his feet. He just screwed it up. But I agree with you there. I think what's really ironic, I would say back in the day, Don King a little bit too. And I know John's experience probably a little different than mine. I actually met him, and I got a chance to see what he was about. And I just say this: I'm from an old school, man. I'm from Dayton, Ohio. It's a lot of slicksters out there. You got boxing for years, way back when, has always been slick. What I find ironic though about this is when we talk about how horrible Don King was, which I'm not saying he was a great man by any means of this, or he is, because he's a slickster. But I watched him speak to people in 5 different languages, or who's at the table in their own language. But he always made sure he gave guys their shots. Now, you had to sign the contract and watch your money. But I 2 things very quickly I'll say about that is, we mentioned about Bob Arum, and we mentioned about how Don King treated Tyson. I'm going to go that way first. Let's keep this 100. When Tyson was under the tutelage and the care of Gus and Bill Caton, Bill Caton, I read this, and maybe I'm wrong, John, correct me. They were getting 30% of that man's money. Your mama don't deserve 30% of that. Nobody talk about that. I mean, I ain't saying that frees Don King from anything, but your mama don't deserve 30%. But we're taking care of him. We got him in a good place. He's not angry. He's out here chasing women. Okay, say what you want to. Let's keep that 100. And then when you flip it around with Bob Arum, I mean, we know he has some shortcomings too. and you mentioned he was the lawyer for Cassius Clay / Muhammad Ali. But I remember this thing, and I told Frank about the meeting where they brought all the African American men up to Cleveland to try to say they were supporting Muhammad Ali, far as not going to the service. What they don't say is the great lawyer Bob Arum brought those guys together, Jim Brown, those other guys together, to promise them pay-per-view opportunities to be the guys that make a lot of money if they came to Cleveland, to persuade Ali to not go against the draft. They don't talk about that. That after talking to Ali, they say they changed their mind. Then you see the beautiful picture. Everybody's talking about this great moment in African American history. They don't tell you Bob Arum was at the forefront of the table trying to tell them, get him to change his mind. He costs a lot of people money. If you can do that, when we have pay-per-view at these theaters, Cleveland, I want to give you the city and you're going to make this money. Nobody talks about that. So when I say it's like kind of like baseball, we talk about the steroid area, everybody had Barry Bonds. Everybody tainted, baby. You might as well put a big ass asterisk over all of them because they all tainted. So depending on who you choose, to me, it's not that much different. Look, if it's a skunk, at some point it's gonna piss on you and it stinks. That's how I'm gonna keep it. Sorry, try to keep it politically correct.
Well, I'm gonna be a butthead. I was gonna say something I thought was funny, but I probably won't. Okay, I'll say it. Mine was Rock Newman. That's another story, Charlie. Okay, now look. Joking.
Let me say this real quick.
Look over my shoulder. What?
Wait a minute. He had 2 fighters.
Did he have 2?
He had Riddick Bowe.
Oh, did he have somebody else? I don't know he had anybody else. Okay.
It was just Riddick Bowe. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
that was it. Yeah. All right. So I'm looking over my shoulder because Bills. Yeah. But okay. But seriously, the thing of the essence of what we're doing. We love talking about the fights, the fighters, the events, all that stuff. But right now, the essence of the fight game is now the game, not the fights. And especially coming out of the situation we're in, or almost out of, hopefully, is that we have to look at it as the game other than just the fight game. Because these guys are controlling everything. Now, not to say they weren't controlling before. Not saying that you mentioned all kinds of people like Bill Caden. We mentioned guys that were taking care of Joe Louis. I understand all that. That all has something to do with it. And you just don't walk out your front door and say, I want to be a fighter and fight somebody. You have to go through the proper channels and all that. I get that part of it. But is it overdone now? That's my thing. I think it's overdone now. I mean, looking at what's coming up here in the next few weeks, let me go back a little bit here. I had these memorized until I brought the Rock Newman thing to my head. I forgot what I was going to say. Devin Haney's fighting. Teofimo Lopez is fighting. Lomachenko is fighting again. Fury and Joshua might be coming up a little while. I still don't know if that's going to be finalized or not. We're looking at Donaire and Ubala. Oh, I can never figure out how to pronounce it. Donaire's getting another title shot. Daniel Dubois is coming out. Even Jarrett Hurd is fighting. Guys are fighting. Shakur Stevenson. Guys are getting in the ring. Inoue is fighting. Guys are getting in the ring. So there's something positive coming out of this. Now, they may not be fighting the big fights, but they're still fighting and giving people opportunities to pull off the upset. Again, I don't know if Neri winning would have been an upset, but I think that most people going in that fight thought Figueroa would probably win. And Neri took the opportunity to say, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. And as you said, John, I think he had the fight, not won, but he was winning at that point.
Yes.
And I didn't see Figueroa doing a lot, and all of a sudden, boom, 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 fight's over. I was shocked. I almost missed it because I was like, okay, this round, and I started looking at something else. Went, how did he get on the ground? He was winning the fight. So we're getting guys getting opportunities. And if we say guys are ducking somebody, which is a possibility, it still doesn't mean that the guy that gets in the ring can't win. And we mentioned the Clubber Lang thing, but Rocky ended up beating Apollo Creed. It's a movie, I get that. But if you get the shot, take the shot. So I think one of the things that we tend to gloss over is the sports fans, the fight fans are concerned, is like, oh, this is gonna suck. They're still prize fighters. Anyone's got a chance when they get in the ring if they're a professional prize fighter. You didn't get ranked high enough to get into the ring against a champion if you don't have the skill to do it. So, John?
Yeah, no, that's true. And real fast, Frank, I actually think we got it, or we all got it. I think with the management and the fights and the fighters, I think the management part is a little higher than it was before. I think back in the day it was lower, so they were more in the shadows, so we didn't see them like we do now, and they get in the way, and that's caused all kinds of problems as far as that goes. Yeah, we've got a lot of good fights coming up, Frank, and Jared Hurd, you said he's a guy that I'm always paying attention to because he's got new trainers and he's trying to change his style, and it didn't look very good in his last fight. So there's always intrigue, and I'm really glad that they're fighting. Just hopefully the promoters and everything get out of the way and let things happen. But this is the soap opera world of professional boxing. So there's always things going on that we can talk about just because they, like I said, they like to shoot themselves in the foot.
Well, and I think, Charles, the way that, at least that I'm looking at it, and I think we did this, as you're playing all sports, let the chips fall where they may. Step out onto the court, onto the pitch, whatever, and give it your best. So if the management is saying, I guess what I'm saying is step out of the role of being your own fighter manager. Just so I have a manager, let him put stuff together. If he puts it together wrong, I can't do anything about that. That's his job. I'm going to do my job. So if I get a shot against somebody, I'm going to try and win. If I'm in the ring, I'm going to fight whoever it is and beat them. This is why I have a concern with the Gary Russells and Adrian Broners of you're not bringing forth your best effort, best whatever you want to call it. Fight somebody. And then when you have a chance to fight. I know Adrian Broner's trying to turn things around. I'll give him credit for that, but he still doesn't get in the ring and fight. And I didn't really need to bring him in. Gotcha.
Yeah, I just want to say something real fast. See, here I go again with another one of my infamous theories, but I think there are guys that really love the sport. It's their passion, like Canelo. Canelo said, hey, and this is the other thing about Canelo that I meant to say what Charles was talking about. Canelo's fighting all the time. That's old school. And that even brings his popularity up even more, even if he's not fighting guys, right? So he gets 73,000 people against Billy Joe Saunders, 73,000 people. So that's huge. Gary Russell and Adrian Broner, I think they just really fight for the money. I don't think they do it because they love it. Again, I could be all wet. They're good at it, especially Gary Russell. He's really good. He's an enigma to me. Never understood him. He's got so much talent. Maybe it comes too easy. So instead of being the guy that's in the gym all the time saying, look, I want to fight 2 or 3 times, he's like, nah, I'm going to fight when I want to. And I'm going to fight once a year. And even though I keep saying I'm going to fight more than once a year, doesn't happen. So I think that's hurt his career. I do. I think that's hurt his, because only boxing people really know him. A lot of people go, Gary who? And that's his fault. He should be fighting more, but it's not changing.
Well, okay, but Charles, in putting another spin on it, is it hurt his career if that's the career that he wants? If we're saying all he wants to do is get paid, and he's getting paid at something that he does well, I have to look it up, but I'm sure Gary Russell's made more than $500,000 in his career.
Yeah.
Well,
so is that a bad thing?
Well, no, it's not, because I think success is what you deem it to be. We all have different goals. Other people can always say, we thought you could have done more. You like, well, hell, I'm good where I'm at. You look at some people said in society, we talk about legacies and comparing people to other people and how great they are in their professions or whatever. But maybe, as you mentioned, it's kind of like Russell Westbrook in basketball. He said, I don't play for championships. So if Gary Russell is meeting his financial obligations at home, everybody's good, everybody's eating well, everybody's taken care of, he has his cars or whatever the situation may be, maybe that's enough for him. And he knows every time he fights, he's going to get another payday. So it depends on the individual and what's important to you. Everybody's not about trophies and things like that. They're more or less about what matters to me.
Well, it's interesting that we get into these things on Real Boxing Talk because we're talking about more than just, did you see that fight? I saw that fight. We've got some stuff coming up this weekend. Again, it's been great getting into this. I really wanted to take more of a look at the Figueroa Nair fight, but I know we have a lot jam-packed into what we had to do. So any closing thoughts, guys, or is it just time to turn out the lights?
Well, I'll just
It's
say
time
real
to turn
fast.
off lights.
Well, you did, Frank, you did mention Fury and Joshua, and I hope that maybe next week we talk about the monkey wrench that Deontay Wilder is throwing in there and talk about contracts. And actually, I think Deontay Wilder, as much as people are hating on him, I think he's right. If I got a contract signed and I get the fight and a pandemic and whatever reason postponed it, that's not my fault. You signed a contract. Right. I'm old school again. You signed your name on a contract, buddy. That means you fight me. You don't say, well, because of the pandemic, time is expired. No, that's not how it works. Yeah, so people are angry.
I need to hear a little bit more about that before. Yeah.
Yeah, people are angry about it, but yeah, maybe we can talk about that next week. That's very, very interesting. Yeah. And Deontay's working with Malik Scott, so he has no experience whatsoever as a trainer. But you never know. Boxing has had some amazing stories.
Mr. Farmer, welcome back from your Vision Quest or whatever. Anything to close out the show?
Yeah, I'll just say real quick that I think that we look at 2021 was really crazy, or 2020 was crazy. 2021 is everybody's trying to get back on track, right? You see all these fighters fighting, maybe not the top-notch guys, but they're trying to get back in rhythm and motion. So I'm hoping that's what you're doing, even with the Wilder chaos, just adding more to the let's get readjusted. So 2022, everybody's going to come to their senses and they're going to do the right thing and give us all the fights we've been looking for, because that's what makes sense. 21 is just summer. Everybody kind of, all right, I'm getting back in the gym. Fans are coming back. We're feeling a little bit differently. 2022, all right, Canelo said, you know what, damn it, I'm going to knock Triple G's ass out. Then I'm going to come back and then I'm going to fight Charlo, and whoever else wanted can get it. And then the same way with Spence and Crawford. Crawford's like, you know what? I don't want to move up, keep going back and forth. Sean Porter, bring it. I'll fight you in Akron, wherever the hell you want me to fight you. Then, Spence, let's get it. So I think that's what's going to happen in my lovely dream. I've been out in the 420 area, not doing too much, but I hope that's what happens.
Well, let's see if we can encapsulate this. 2021, let's get this crap done. 2022, this is for you.
We can hope.
Ta-da!
We can hope.
All right, that's enough for me. Enough stupid stuff for me. All right, thank you, folks, and we will catch you.